Finance and Performance meeting this morning, our May 2003 meeting. Welcome to anyone watching via live stream. And can I ask you all to stand and worship the Mayor? We'll read the council prayer.
Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all of the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions, and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen.
I'd like to move that we've received an apology from Councillor Kauken and an apology from Councillor Loudon for lateness. I move that be accepted. Seconded by Councillor Carter. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item number 3, public forum. I haven't been notified of any public forum this morning. And item 4, conflict of interest declarations. Does anyone here have any conflicts they'd like to declare now? If not, the normal procedure is if we're discussing matters and a conflict arises, please raise it at that time. Item 5 is confirmation of the order of business. There are no new items to be added and the order is unchanged on the order paper. Item 6 is confirmation of minutes of our previous meeting. I call for any amendments or matters arising. Page 6. Page 7, page 8, 9, 10, 11.
Just a question with regard to page 11, the QV report, when it talks about valuation. So that's the valuation only on residential properties. So presumably we will still go through another cycle of revaluation in terms of council assets. So that's a separate cycle, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. The QV report is our rateable. The properties we rate on our infrastructure assets, etc. They're a separate 3-year cycle. Yeah.
Thank you.
So a clarification there, that will include rural, commercial, industrial and residential type properties right across the district.
Yeah. Thank you.
Page 12 and 13.
I'm happy to move, Madam Chair. Second.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. All those in favour?
Except I can't.
You
I
were
wasn't there.
Oh, beg your pardon.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Maughan. Seconded Councillor Wilson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Item number 7 is the follow-up actions from previous meetings. I see there's none included at the moment. Are there any items anyone would like to discuss now? Okay, moving along. Chair's report. So I've just a verbal report today. First of all, I'd just like to acknowledge that the Environment Court has dismissed the appeal around the proposed change to the district plan. In my view, this development is likely to see a decrease in rating burden on our existing ratepayers. The second big news is the...
Can I just have a clarification that the decision won't
the
Take
development.
pressure off our rates, only the subsequent development would.
That's correct, yeah. The second big news is to acknowledge our CE's resignation, and I would like to wish him well in his new role in Christchurch, back with his family, and I'd particularly like to acknowledge his people focus, especially around health and safety. Thank you. Late last week, I attended a BNZ presentation with the Chief Economist, Mike Jones, and just a few interesting points I'd just like to, as he saw it, the world as he saw it. Government spending was adding to the inflationary pressure. Debt, the rebuild is going to be debt funded, but New Zealand's net debt level sits only at 20% versus Australia at 40%, and as is in the news at the moment, the US at 90%. We've hit 60,000 net migration. Most of those people have come in from India, Indonesia and South Africa. And this is still a bumpy road ahead in terms of interest rates, and they're likely to possibly stay higher longer. Inflation may well drop from this current 7%, but it's likely to go to 3 to 5%, not the 2% we've previously experienced. So can I move that Chair's report is received?
Can I just ask you a couple of questions with regard to that? So you were saying net debt at 90%. There are now questions whether they can meet their financial obligations in terms of that position. Was there any comment from him around what happens if they can't?
No, there wasn't. But he was also concerned about the growing geopolitical tension added on top of that. Yeah, in terms of, but yeah, I didn't pick up anything.
So that decision, that date is June, July, isn't it? They have to, or is it earlier than that? It's imminent, isn't it?
Absolutely imminent, yeah. Certainly in the news this morning.
Thank you. That's just the only question from me.
Any other questions? Sorry. Awesome. Item 9, reports for information. 9.1 refers to the Treasury and Debt 22-23. Can I ask Mr. Toomsey, can you take us through this, please?
Certainly, thank you. I'll just point out a couple of points in the report, if I may. Section 2.2, just so you're all aware that we did increase our debt by 5 million during April. Further down that page, you can see in section 4.1.1, very high receivables figure at the end of April. That's because the fourth quarter's rates were due and they've been paid in May. That figure's come down since. So that means that our treasury assets at the end of April would have been significantly higher than they were the previous month because the rates debt wasn't recognised then. Section 5.1 shows that the extra 5 million debt is included now in our debt summary. And over the page, section 6.5 and 6.6. So we've been reporting these two liquidity ratios now for about a year. And section 6.5 and 6.6, I'm not sure that the ratio that LGFA use, I'm not sure how intuitive that is to committee members, and if it's actually that meaningful. When in 6.6 shows it's the same ratio as just saying bank must be at least 10% of debt, which I think is more, personally, I think is more meaningful. So I'd just be happy to hear that if the committee would like the ratio to be continue to be reported as it is, or in the version I've suggested in 6.6.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to highlight the importance of this conversation and why it will feature more in our elected members' conversations in the coming weeks. You may recall our annual plan for consultation provided a graph of total debt, and it also used a debt ceiling number as the maximum debt for council, and that was as previously described in council's long-term plan. With the key choices that you will be considering, that has a considerable impact on debt, as I know you're aware. But the complicating factor is that we now have a scenario different to that in the consultation document, and that is that the debt that was proposed to be repaid on 1 July 2024 as part of Three Waters transition will no longer be paid in 2024. So therefore, we'll have a change in our debt position for 2 years, differently to what you've previously seen. And we know in that graph that we will be reaching close to our debt cap, but as prescribed in our LTP. And so what Dave's instigating here is a conversation with the committee around how you would wish that to continue in terms of the number, whether we stick with the previously advertised number of 93. That was 93, Dave?
93, 91, yeah.
No, sorry. Or is there other ways in which you'd like it prescribed? And Dave's showing there's lots of different ways to describe it. Thank you.
Any comments from the floor?
Perhaps one, if I may, and thank you for that, Peter, but I think what that highlights is the amount of inability we have to predict, given what's happening from central government and the jumping around that is happening and the difficulty that it makes in this space. I think we can only predict for what we know, because those figures at 2024 can't be relied on, and they may in fact change yet. We simply do not know, so we can only carry on for basing ourselves on what we know at this point in time in the current fields that we work on. I just wonder, with some of these numbers that are retrospective in nature, how we could show them to be a short-term forecast, because we report back, and I'm referring to some of our capital works programs. So when do we see those, rather than in a long-term LTP position, which takes us right through? Can we see anything in a short-term prediction that would highlight that? Is that monitored? Is that mapped anywhere along the line in your offices?
Yeah, so section 7 of this report, it might not be as long term as you're referring to, but section 7 is based on financial year end predictions. The figures used again, section 7 are full year forecast as opposed to year to date figures. So they show where I expect us to be at the end of June this year. And yeah, wanted a year on from that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, beg your pardon. Councillor Morton.
Thank you. I don't really, the ratio of the 21%, actually makes sense. But the figure is the figure, if we've got debt, we've got debt, and all we need to know is the trend it's going and where we're at a certain point in time. So as governors of the business, we can monitor whether we're within the limits that are set by local government. And those are pretty, stuck in law pretty much, aren't they? These 121%, the 110% and 175%. Well, that's our limits that we can go to, and we need to know how far. And it doesn't matter what day of the week it is, the debt's the debt. And all we need to do is make sure we don't get too deep in it, in my view. The Three Waters one, I was pretty adamant at the time we talked about the Three Waters debt that, we couldn't rely on that money coming through, and I thought we'd given the assurance it was coming through, but it's obviously not now, so. And the figure's the figure.
Do you want to apply it to that?
Yeah, there's a few different topics here. I'm not sure which one you want me to.
Well, I agree with the ratio. I'd rather keep the 121, but also if the other one is it's not hard to say, take the 100 off the 21 and you get your 21%.
Sure. Okay, it was just a description whether members would be able to explain what that actually meant. External debt plus committed facilities plus liquid assets divided by external debt. Bit of a mouthful. I don't know if everyone really understands what that's saying, and it really is. The bank's got to be 10%. So, to answer Councillor Wilson's comment about trend analysis, yeah, the trend graphs in section 7.1, for example, I think that shows there's a significant headroom there, that it's not what we call a sensitive ratio at this stage. And the graph over the page, it's a bit of a funny ratio, this one, because when that starts getting tight, all you've got to do is borrow more money and put it in the bank, and that makes that ratio look better again. I'm not here to justify these ratios. I'm just saying what LGFA uses their borrowing covenants. I do believe that some councils have exceeded the borrowing covenants, and that's a discussion they have to have with LGFA if they want to borrow more money. So it's not legislation. And LGFA did soften some of these ratios during COVID because they realised that some councils would struggle for various reasons that I won't go into today. So they are borrowing covenants. We do monitor them short term, mid and long term. Bearing in mind, the longer the term, the more variables there are, the more assumptions we use. And we continue to have that conversation.
Rusha.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Toombs. You did right. There's been a number of subjects brought up within this, within a few minutes. I would like to see us take a little bit more time than seeking a resolution today. And the reasons for that are, I agree in terms of understanding it against percentages, etc. But the reality is, first of all, the debt limits are not set by local government. The debt limits are self-imposed debt limits. They are council's decision. And it would probably be a very good idea for us to look at that issue as well. But we must report against our debt limits as they're stated. So the reporting that becomes to us must be against the standard that we are reporting against. So there has to be an absolute correlation in my mind. There can be a further explanation around that in terms of how it is portrayed to councillors, and I have some sympathy with that. But to me, the moment you start getting away from a reporting structure against what you said your position is, you, in my mind, have a problem. So I think that we have a huge amount of work to do, and it is compounded dramatically by the government's change of positions with regard to 24-26, and we need to start understanding that. We will need to have an understanding of our debt positions before we make a decision in the annual plan determinations around key choices. You know, for instance, if council decided to invest the best part of 60 million in, or 50 million in Tai Happy and Martin buildings, we need to understand where that sits against our debt positions. So what I'd like to see is a little bit more of a comprehensive paper around exactly where we're going to sit, where we've said we're going to accept debt positions going forward, and whether that's still relevant, and how we report against that standard. I'm sorry if it's been a little bit wordy, but
Mr. Meeks.
if I'm off beam, I'd be interested in staff response.
To support His Worship's comment, we are preparing something through Mr. Toombs for your deliberations meeting.
Thank you.
So you have a full understanding of debt with the impact of the Three Waters decision and the key choices, the preferred key choices.
Through you, Madam Chair. Would you be happy as part of that report to look at our self-imposed debt limits and how they would compare to some of the other councils? Because we were fairly conservative in our approach.
I think as a starting point, most councils would use the LGFA covenants as their debt limit, and then they tweak that where they saw a need.
Do you still feel that would be interesting to have that clarified in the paper?
Well, I think so.
Just to confirm where similar type councils are sitting.
Yeah, I can see historically, every council produces these ratios in their annual report each year. So if someone, we can get someone to plough through, this would be precise in what you're asking. Every how many councils we need to review?
Yeah, it would be helpful to have specificity on this
Yes.
if we're taking on as
Sure.
action as to what.
67 councils. Do you want us to go through the last 5 years?
What I'd be looking for is a similar position. You did right, because it depends on which councils you pick. Because if you go, for instance, if you go to South Taranaki, they are asset rich. Most of the Taranaki councils are. But
Yeah. I can tell you historically, we are one of the lowest debt councils in New Zealand. 2 years ago, we were practically the lowest when we had 3 million. So I can tell you now, the annual reports will show us historically these ratios, and we would be looking pretty healthy. But with the preferred choices, etc., the workshop, the paper we're talking about, predicting, showing the future position, I think it'll be a lot more meaningful, because it will show us where we're headed, not where we've come from, which we know is a position of comfort.
absolutely.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't know that I'd be too much interested about other councils, but more within that report, perhaps a little bit understanding, if it's not too much, as to actually how that LGFA debt position is reached. Because of that is what forms the basis of our debt position for our modelling. I'd like to know just a little bit in that report as to, or that paper that's to come, actually, how is that that ratio met, and on what basis is it met? Is it very conservatively met, or is it mid-range risk met? Is it high risk met? Just a little bit more of understanding of how that is, if it was to be a benchmark.
If I can, to respond to that, though, the paper and the model I'll show you includes future predicted or notional rates increases and CPI increases, because that all flows through. So what I've done is as a starting point, just said, let's assume annual CPI going forward of 5%, and an annual rates increase going forward, it's got to cover that of 6%. So that then flows through to pre and post waters and pre and post preferred choices to show all these ratios and where that would end up based on a whole bunch of assumptions, future capex, etc., etc. But it does show where there's stress and where there's comfort based on the assumptions I've used. Yeah.
Councillor Vaughan.
I think Dave just clarified it, but just clarifying it again. So the report will show the effect on rates for the key choices on an annual
report will
basis.
show, if we have a rates increase of this, how it impacts the debt position. I can easily change the notional rates increases to come up with different positions, because the rates increases, the CPI increases, I've got to put a number in there.
Yeah.
They're not predictions or forecasts. It just goes to show, if on this basis, this is how much debt pressure there would be going forward. There's a whole bunch of assumptions in there that we can change.
Yeah, but I personally would like to see the effect of the key choices on a rates percent per annum.
That's in the consultation document, yeah.
So
Being debt plus depreciation.
Yes, you'll be doing your figures. Yeah, and making a report, that's sort of stuff I'd like to see.
Councillor Loudon.
Thank you. Apologies for being late. How does council pay back debt? Like, is there a policy that we pay debt back over 10 years, 15 years? Because you can have debt and it can sit there, particularly in the current scenario with high interest rates. So what's the council?
Right, so we've got 4 parcels of debt and they're fixed term and they're interest only. Like a lot of councils, if not most councils, when they're going through a growth phase, that is generally fixed term, interest only. When it comes to the end of its term, it's renewed. So it's not actually paid off. You can only repay debt when your cash income is more than your cash outgoing. So rates has to keep going up and you've got to stop having growth assets for debt to come down.
So there could be a situation where the debt just stays. And
All the city councils in New Zealand are pretty much getting to the stage where they're at that capacity because they're grown, they're investing in growth assets and no capacity to pay it back.
I think, Madam Chair, this is a common misunderstanding of councillors, because councillors tend to go in with the thought of you purchase a new car and you pay that off over the term of the loan. That's not the case in local government.
I think in simple terms, the best way it's been described to me is if you think of your home loan situation, you buy the house, you get the mortgage, and then and you pay that off as you can afford it. But then in 5 years' time, you want to do some renovations. So that's the equivalent to the growth that we experience at council, and so that debt just keeps on accumulating. Yeah. So have we got the outcome that you need out of this?
I think so. I think that the comment was that maintain the ratio in 6.5 and committee members can interpret that into a mode that they find useful. And next week we've got the workshop where we'll go through the future debt positions with reference to preferred choices, etc.
Council meeting.
Council meeting?
Deliberations.
Oh yeah.
So everyone happy we move on from that? Okay. So on to 9.2. Oh, beg your pardon. I'd like to move that the report Treasury and Debt April 2023 be received, noting the justification in section 2.2 for council having a current account bank balance higher than the recommended in the council's treasury management policy. We have a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Councillor Carter. All in favour? Against? Carried. So item 9.2 is the financial snapshot as at April 2023. Will you take us through that, Mr. Holmes?
Certainly, thank you. As for previous months, the operating position is fairly comfortable compared to budget. I would just point out section 5.3 of the report talks about FAR rate, so the emergency funding rate we've been advised is 100% for the initial response and recovery for the recent events, which is good to see. Apart from that, I think it's rather similar to previous months. I'm happy just to take questions. Just noting the pleasing whole of council budget performance for the year to date.
Any questions?
Sorry,
Comments? Yes.
yeah, just to further add from Dave's comment on section 5.3, I'll do it before Arno jumps in, just to note that whilst Waka Kotahi are saying that's the FAR rate plus 40%, that doesn't mean that everything we apply for is funded. So what they accept, they will fund by FAR plus 40%, not everything we apply for. And that will come out in the conversation at full council this afternoon, that just because we've applied for it, doesn't mean it's automatically going to be accepted by Waka Kotahi, and therefore there's a potential of disparity.
So
Have I summarised that correctly?
historically, have they generally come forward and fronted up on what we applied for, or has there historically been some significant disparity?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Historically, we never get the full claim. There's always some disagreement in the claim, and there's always a little bit less. I think there's more sensitivity on the cyclone, and they would probably view it in a different light, but I would expect a little bit less.
Thank you. Councillor Moore?
Just a quick question on capital expenditure. Motor vehicle purchases, have they all been completed? Because it said delivered by 31st of May 23.
I don't know if they've been completed. They've been ordered. There's a huge pipeline to get vehicles at the moment. So we've ordered them. We're just now waiting for them to come through.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Chair. Just referencing back to 5.3, I think it's important to note that the work does get done. So it gets done, it gets funded, it gets paid for, and then we lodge the claim. And there is quite a delay sometimes between when that money comes back through from Waka Kotahi back into our funds. So it is funded from our emergency funds and effectively from our cash flow in the first instance, if I'm correct in saying that, before we get the money back. So that does have a financial impact for a period of time until the money is coming back to us. Am I right in that?
So, Chair, if I may, partly there's emergency works that happens immediately, that a slip, for instance, that we got to remove or whatever, but then there's also longer term repair work that we have to, so it's a bit of a mix, and Councillor Wilson is correct. So in the beginning there is a spend, but there's also a lag spend that we wait for that funding.
Oh, but it's the same as any other roading work.
Your Worship?
Yes, in terms of the line 4.1, the year-to-date capital expenditure is 17.7 million against the year-to-date budget of 26.4. Does that include the unbudgeted expenditure? So, for instance, when you put unbudgeted expenditure of, say, 5 million into waste treatment plant in Taihape, does that unbudgeted expenditure and CapEx work increase there as well?
Yeah, the 17 million is total CapEx budgeted and unbudgeted. You've quoted a figure of 5 mil. That's not included in the 17 mil.
It's not.
No, pages 30 to 32, or 31 and 32 show the big items that feed into the 17 mil. And you can see there what's unbudgeted. So there is 1.2 worth of emergency works at the bottom of page 31.
I feel like I'm misunderstanding this somehow. So the year-to-date capital expenditure of 17.7 million is the capital expenditure against our annual plan budget for this year.
The annual plan budget is 26.4. We spent 17.7, but of the 17.7, 1.2 is emergency works. So against the annual plan budget, you could say that 16.5 is the figure. But with the emergency works, that's conducted at the expense of other roading works. So it's a bit of a, it's got to be, to some extent, it's got to be taken together, because it's just shifting the roading work from one line to another line. And we can't control that.
And there's a further complication that some of the roading work was unspent from the previous year, wasn't it?
Yes, there were, I believe there were capital carry forwards from last financial year to this financial year, yeah.
Yeah, I just wish I'd spent a little bit more time trying to understand this. But to be honest, it's my my issue, really not council's issue.
You can see from, if I may, page 32 shows that there are a couple of, in the water area, a couple of large budgets with nothing, the centralisation project. There's 2 lines there that come to a total of to over 2.5 million, and that project's not kicked off yet. Significant anyway. So a large part of the unspent budget is just them 2 lines.
Madam Chair, I might come back at some other time when I understand this a little bit better.
Thank you. Okay. Can I please have a mover that this report, the financial snapshot, April 2023 be received? Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Seconded, Councillor Morn. All in favour? Against? Carried. Move to item 9.3, QV report, page 33.
Thank you. There's a standard report which is updated month by month and presented to the committee. Happy to take questions, bearing in mind that it's not my figures. I'll have to maybe take any queries back to QV.
Any questions? Councillor Lara.
Question, I'm just trying to understand what QV means by under construction. It appears that they have building consent, but they might not have started work. And building consents do have a time frame sometimes. And what does under construction mean?
Section 2.1.1, this has been raised before, and QV have given the explanations in section 2.1.
And 2.12. Oh, yeah.
Madam Chair, the relevant, from council, the relevant position is when do they become rateable? And is that what you're getting at?
Well, it just seems that 195 houses are under construction in Rangitikei seems quite a lot.
I would have thought it was an understatement, to be honest. An enormous amount of construction.
Councillor Wilson?
Just to note, that is building consents issued, full stop, doesn't necessarily mean housing construction. Anything that requires a building sheet could be a renovation. A building consent is required to install a fire. So that is purely and simply on building consents being issued. Not all things would necessarily go through to a CCC application, which is the final stage of a building consent, which would be in a full build.
Yes, the relevant question here, Madam Chair, is at what stage does a new house move into our rating database and they attract rates?
Yes.
So my understanding is when QV go through their formalities and advise us that a house is complete and ready to be rated, the following year it gets added to the rateable property list. So if a house is completed on the 1st of July, they get a year with no rates. If it's completed on the 29th of June, 2 days earlier, they pay full rates the following year.
Councillor Wilson?
If I may, a building consent can be active for 2 years and can also have an extension applied to at that stage. So a building consent can be active for quite some time.
Sure.
If I've heard you right, a property that has its co-compliance on 30th of June won't pay rates, sorry, on 2 July will not pay rates for a whole year. They will not pay any rates whatsoever to council.
We rate based on the rating list or rating register as at the 30th of June. Oh no, they'll pay rates, but on the unimproved value.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just people online have just said nursing them through the heart attack.
Yeah, I mean,
The values as at 30th of June are what a property is rated for the next financial year.
Okay.
But essentially, Mr. Tim's absolutely correct. The timing of sign off by QV is really, really important because you basically can go a year being unrated on a brand new home.
Do we tend to see a flurry of work towards the end of the financial year in our favour?
Also QV likes to clear all their books up, and we like QV to clear their books up, so everything's clean and tidy by 30th of June, and they are pretty good at that.
Thank you. So I'd like to move that the QV report be received. I'm a seconder for that. Thank you, councillor Carter. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Just a supplementary one to that in terms of the rate remission policy, and we revoked that in the southern part of the district. So our rates remission policy does not absolutely necessarily match the QV position on rating. So I thought that our rates policy kicks off from when that building is signed off as completed. So, for instance, effectively with the $5,000, and say you said that was a bit over 18 months worth of free rates, depending on the time of sign off, the QV, some of that period, they lose effectively.
Although, I might just speak to that, Chair, under the current rating policy that we have, which is up for discussion later this afternoon, that is a credit to their account. So therefore, it would not merely matter how that was applied, because it is therefore a credit. They're not physically getting $5,000, it is a credit to their rating number, their rating account, which would be held in credit over a period of time. So it would really not make any difference as to when it was signed off by QV, I should imagine.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. So, item 9.4, page 35, proposed reforms, future financial impacts. Mr. Toombs.
Thank you. Not a great deal of update this month compared to previous months. The main update is in section 2.2. We've been advised to expect some information and advice about debt and no worse off funding in the coming months.
Any questions to that report? Yes.
Chair, just smiling to myself, proposed reform, future financial impacts, and wondering how well polished Mr. Toombs' crystal ball gazing is at this point in time.
What section are you referring to, Councillor?
Well, you have the wording of proposed reforms, future financial impacts, and just how difficult, again, to my earlier question, for you to really be predicting on that.
Yeah, we do projections based on a bunch of, as you'll see, the deliberations. I put in notional future CPI, notional future rates increases, notional future CapEx spends, notional future interest rates. And what it does, it shows how sensitive the figures are and how, it's sensitivity analysis, essentially.
Any other questions? Can I please have a mover for receipt of the report? Thank you, Councillor Carter. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Loudon. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 9.5, page 36, public feedback and performance report. We'll give Mr. Toombs a rest. Galen, welcome to the table.
Thank you. So the report, 83% of the feedback is very positive. You'll note that the 3 community facilities have dropped down slightly in April. School holiday time, most of April I think was school holidays or Easter, so that wasn't entirely unexpected. Otherwise, I'm happy to take questions.
For me, Chair, thank you for this report, and I just, I note that there is a lot more detail in here than we've seen recently, particularly around the RFS and the follow-up procedures of how that has progressed through the council when we do receive these, particularly requests for services and those types of things. So I think some of the detail in here and the better understanding of what sits in behind the actions that follow is very good, and thank you for bringing it to our attention so that we can see, very much what the process is. So I think it's been well documented in this report.
And just on that note, we are about to roll out some more QR codes around our facilities around the district too. So we'll have greater opportunity for public feedback.
As per always, and subsequent comment if I may, everything is about feedback, and everything is also about follow-up. And getting that follow-up through to anybody that comes to our RFS system as quickly as possible, specifically acknowledgement that it's been received is absolutely critical. And if we can, and I understand there's a lot of work with regards to staff, but if we can, focus on having that follow-up and acknowledgement to the shortest possible time so this resolution can be seeked rather than a lag time, because a lag time does nothing for anybody. So we'll just say a focus on that if possible would be good.
Councillor Carter.
Page 48, regarding the incident at the Martin Library. Was there a good outcome to that?
Yes, there was. The manager for library services did follow up with the parent, and they were offered gauze. Just wanted to clarify that. But yeah, they were very happy to note that our staff did have first aid training, etc.
So one of the reasons that Gayleen is here presenting that is a lot of this overlaps both our areas. So I thought in the nature of some of the questions that get asked, particularly in our other facilities, that it's useful for Gayleen to be part of this paper to provide that explanation. But in terms of the RFS process itself, we are still working on ongoing improvements to that, and we've got a project in place at the moment that IT and Dave's team and myself and the customer service team are all part of, and the key focus of that is to get it as accurate and as timely as we can possibly get in terms of reporting back to managers, which is another part that's really important if we're seeing trends of things happening. So that project is underway at the moment.
Important to remember, just on that subject, that of course every RFS is an opportunity, and if we take it as an opportunity for improvement for the organisation, then the outcomes will be shown. So if we focus on that, then that's the way to consider it. Yeah.
And you'll see the uptake of these other mechanisms that we've got in place is increasing. I know we had feedback through the annual plan that we need to do more of this, and we are continually doing more of it when resource and money allows. But like Gayleen said, there's more QR codes going out there because that has been a good mechanism for people to feedback information on our facilities, which is great.
Your Worship.
Yeah. In terms of the submissions to our annual plan, there were some submissions from people to say that they were disappointed about our annual plan documents not being in the libraries and being up to date, etc. Did they make any comment? Did they go to the staff and say, where are they? Or is there any track record of that?
No. And I think what happened is we probably ran out of documents by the time that submitter actually went to look. So that's something Galen and I can improve on with our comms person to make sure that there's enough documents there right to the end of the submission process.
So they then didn't go to the library staff and say, please,
And
I
they
would
could
have
have, oh, they
expected,
did.
where are they?
Okay.
Some certainly did. I don't know if the one you're talking about did, but I know I know customers did go to staff and they printed off the information for them.
So if they had asked, it would have been,
Yes,
it would have been printed off.
yes.
Okay, thank you very much, that's useful.
Councillor Wong.
Just again on page 48, feedback about the Taiapi gumboot. Somebody commented they wanted a seat maybe. Should that perhaps be reference to the community board for their action?
What would be the normal process?
I know the Parks manager has noted the request and is considering it as part of his
As opposed to
project.
funding from local community. Yeah, okay.
I can pass that feedback on. Are you thinking from the small projects?
Yeah, I
Yes.
thought that would be appropriate, yeah.
I can pass that on to the Parks manager.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Wilson.
So just for future reporting, it would be in this sort of nature, also showing anything that's been perhaps escalated or anything like that. Is that what your expectation is, or is that not the expectation of this, or is it just a percentage? As to outcomes for anything that's perhaps been escalated outside of this. I mean, you show the status of where they're at, and there's comment about following it through the process and the ability for people to, if resolution can't be sought right at the very beginning, and to what that process is there any, and if there's no relevance to the committee to have that information, or if it's not, I'm just wondering if is that anything that needs to be shown, or is it not relevant?
I might consider it operational. I'm
Yep,
not
okay.
sure. Yeah.
No, fine.
Say the same. I'd say that if there was something of a magnitude that we thought would be relevant to follow up with council, but where it's a request for a seat, I think, if the parks manager's aware of that request and also goes to the community board, but it can't happen for a while until there's funding, I mean, I wouldn't think that we just keep reporting on something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Trust us to do our jobs.
Galen, I was wondering, page 49, with the complaints typed by department. Sorry. I'm just wondering, can we add the numbers back in there to get a sense of?
And they dropped off. Okay. Yes, we can.
That would be great. Thank you. Any other questions? Can I please have a mover that report be received? Councillor Wilson. Seconded by Councillor Carter. All in favour? Against? Carried. And that is now the end of our meeting, I believe.
Thank you.